Why is there stigma among collectors associated with buying off eBay? I never would have found Kadash for TG16 without eBay. I think this question can be looked at in two different ways. I'll answer it my way, and then I know Pat has his own opinion on it. My thing is, it's not so much a stigma. I don't really care. I have always enjoyed the thrill of the hunt and the find. I recently scored 10 Brian Eno records that I'd been looking for forever, and I could have ordered them all off the internet the minute I wanted them, but I waited and I waited, and I got them through my record store, and I supported a local business, and I had a lot of fun that day, and that's why I don't like using eBay. It takes, to me personally, it takes some of the fun out of it.
That's part of it. I think we differentiate between, I always talk about eBay insta-collectors.
Sure.
Or people that only use eBay, get into it quickly, spend a ton of money, and then fall out of love within a year or two. And you're seeing that with a lot of collectors now, that people start from 0 Nintendo games, and then all of a sudden they have 500 within like a year.
I knew a guy.
You know how long it took me to get 500 games? It probably took me 7 years to get 500 games. That's how long it took me, or 8 years. You know what I mean? Whatever it was, probably 8 years, 7 years. I think what it does is this: it dilutes your knowledge of what you're doing.
Sure. By
just saying, oh, I can just go on a checklist and, all right, I'll buy these 40 games today.
Right.
So I think it lowers your appreciation of the hobby and what you're doing, because you're not learning about it. You're not learning about the games you're buying. So when I would go to a flea market when I was first collecting the first 3-4 years, I would get most of the games I would clean and I'd play it for at least a minute and say, oh, what's this game? I have no idea what this game is. I'll just play it. And just that experience, I think there's something to that I don't want to say you have an affection more towards what you're doing, but I think you have more of an appreciation for it.
I think you do too, and you tend to look into it more as well. The other thing is, I always talk about this sort of thing with like multi-carts or emulation, but if you're buying in bulk off of eBay, if you're an insta-collector, that sort of deal, if you want to use that term, and you're buying, say, 20 games at a time, you never get a chance to really sit down and enjoy those. It's not quite the same as going out to like the flea market, buying 10 games, that you find at the flea market, and I mean, going home, sitting down and running, at least giving each one 5-10 minutes. Mm-hmm. If you're buying in bulk, you miss out. I mean, there's plenty of collectors out there who probably haven't played half the games they have.
Not just that, I haven't played half the games I have overall.
Well, no, technically you have.
Well, not for Nintendo, I played them all, but I haven't played half my Genesis games,
right. And I'll give you shit for that forever.
But the point is this: is that it's also it's almost like when you put a frog in water and you slowly put the temperature up more and more, he doesn't know it's boiling. So it's that way too. I don't know. I'm boiling myself buying all these games. So at least in my mind, I'm not going to just all of a sudden have a breakdown and get rid of them all.
Well, let me tell you.
I didn't see myself spend. I can't imagine the cost it would take me today to get all these Nintendo games. Not even the ones in the box. Just getting the loose ones would probably cost me 7 to 8 times, to even probably 10 times at least, the amount that I paid for these over the years. And so just doing that, all of a sudden, wow, I'm spending 13 grand on all these games versus I probably spent whatever I spent, 3,000 over 12 years. That's a lot different psychologically and on the bottom line of how much you spent on the games.
There was a kid, you actually met him. You remember his friend, the guy who had that walk.
Oh yes.
Yeah. There was a guy who came in. There's a guy who used to shop at the store all the time, and he would buy games, and he was nice. I mean, I'm not ragging on the guy, but he was a younger kid. He was probably 23 when he was doing it, but he was working a couple of jobs, and he'd always tell me about all the games he was getting, and he was getting most of them from eBay, and he would come in and buy a couple, that he would see in the store every once in a while. But I saw him every month for probably 2 years, and at the end of those 2 years he basically had a full set, mostly from eBay, of NES games.
Wow.
And then he stopped showing up, and I saw this just happened like a month ago. I saw a buddy of his who he used to come in with all the time. I'm like, what happened to dude? And he goes, oh, I don't know, haven't seen him in 6 months. He kind of looked around and lost it, sold off his collection. And,
wow.
Yeah, he's like, as far as I know, he's not even playing video games anymore. This was a guy who was wholeheartedly buying into the I'm a gamer persona. I wanted to have the full NES set, was practicing, Street Fighter for tournament play. And then from within 2 years went from full force to I don't even think he's playing video games anymore.
Wow. Well, that's an extreme case, but that can happen.
Yeah.
Again, I'll go back to just the appreciation factor of doing it gradually, as well, and also the fact that you're not doing the market any favors. I mean, you can't blame individuals, but when you just go out and hit and buy it nows for all these games, that's just jacking the prices up.
Right.
And I know there's no way to get around that. There's more and more collectors now than there were even 3 years ago for this stuff, especially more than 5 years ago. But for a game like, let's get an uncommon game. What is this one? Pesterminator.
Yeah.
So this isn't a game you're going to find often. I found it at a video game store, actually. That's why I know exactly where I got this from. That's why I would never probably sell it, too. My first trip out to San Diego, I bought Pesterminator. If you just go online and just buy this willy-nilly, you need it yesterday, you're going to spend, you don't care, all right, it's whatever, $35 by now, I'll just pull the trigger. So that gradually, then the next person selling it says, oh, I saw it go for 35, I'll list it at 38. I'll list it at 40, at 45. You're not doing anyone any favor. I'm not blaming you if you need to buy Pesterminator, but if you need to get it yesterday, first of all, I don't know why, this game is not that good. It really isn't.
No one needs Terminator yesterday.
So there's that aspect too, which never gets talked about really. I think I might have brought it up at MagFest at the video game collecting. Maybe I did. I know I brought it up at least one time before in the past panel. But yeah, you can fall out of love with it. And again, I think it's an appreciation thing. And I also think that you have less of a chance. I don't know. Here's where some collectors don't like me, but I really would hope, and you get on me for not playing some of the games, but for a lot of these games, at least, I think I know a little bit of what I'm talking about, at least. I have some knowledge of some of these games. You're just laughing at me. And I see a lot of these collectors get into it, and they're more concerned about, well, I have, 400 boxes, and I have 500 manuals, but they couldn't tell you anything about, like, even 10% of the games that they have.
Yeah.
They couldn't pass on any knowledge of it, or they couldn't just enjoy it for what it is, besides it's a collectible. Yes, it's a collectible, but it's also a video game. It's also an interactive experience. I know it's hard to sort of teeter on that line, and I kind of do it as best I can, but I like to think I can do that, and that's why I am making videos, and you do see me on Video Game Years and other projects that we may or may not be working on, that I can sort of pass on some knowledge of some of this bullshit, these gray slabs sitting on my shelf.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of on the other end of that, where for me it's more the knowledge that's fun and less having it. I mean, I'm looking at an NES collection that is rapidly dwindling, yet I mean, my favorite thing to do at work is when people come in and they're like, man, I'm trying to remember this game, and I'm like, shoot, and they give me a sentence and a half and I've got it. Like, I love being able to do that. Like, I like knowing about games. I like being able to talk to people about games. And playing them is fun, too. Owning them?
Well, maybe that's a connection where I can think about the game when I can see it. I can think about how frustrating Dick Tracy is, or how underrated Danny Sullivan's Indie Heat is, sitting right there. So,
yeah,
it's that sort of deal with me.
Danny Sullivan. It's always Danny.